Hello and welcome back to Hank's Yarncast. My name is Casey and I'm the owner and operator of Hank's Yarn Parlour in Belfast. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new here, this is just where I give you a little bit of an update on any shop news and also just share what I've been knitting or crocheting or sewing. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to start with some shop news. I normally do. Actually, I'm going to tell you first of all, before we get too far into this, that I've got a little bit of a different setup going on this time, just in terms of cameras, and I've got a microphone now, so hopefully you guys won't hear so much of the road noise in the background. My shop is on a very busy road, and it's also right by a traffic light with a pedestrian beeper, so it can be a little bit noisy. Hopefully this will tone that down a bit and it'll sound a little bit better. Let me know in the comments if you can still hear anything or if it sounds a bit weird. It's not the greatest quality mic, but I think it'll make a little bit of an improvement. So we'll see how she goes anyway. Okay, so shop news. Let me first tell you about some classes that are coming up. So our beginners crochet workshop is coming up very shortly again. That begins on the 20th of March and runs through for 3 weeks until the 3rd of April. So all the materials are included for that. If you have been thinking about learning how to crochet, whether you've been knitting before or just coming along to new crafts, I mean, if you're here, you're probably already crafting a little bit of some description, but if you're local and you're interested in learning to crochet, that's definitely a good class for you. All of the details for that class and a couple others I'm going to tell you about you can find on our website. So that's hanksyarnparlour.com. And that's just under the events tab there. Another crochet class that is coming up on the 9th of April is an amigurumi class. We're going to make this super cute, adorable little snail. So this is not a beginner's class, but it's not super advanced either. So if you've got a little bit of crocheting under your belt, as long as you can chain and you can double crochet, then I can show you how to make one of these super cute little snails. After that, the next class coming up, which I believe then will be, it's the following week. Is it this? Gosh, you guys have forgotten the date already. I can't remember if it's the 16th or the 17th of April, but I'll pop that up here and it'll be in the description below for sure. But that is our brioche class. So if you would like to learn how to knit brioche, we do a class with a basic cowl here. This has a little bit of one color brioche, but it's mostly 2 color. Which actually, for some reason, is a little bit easier to work, at least in my opinion. So yeah, come along to that one. It's the 16th or the 17th, but I will put the proper dates up there. And again, you can find all the details for that on Hank's website. Let's see. Okay, super excited. I have got some new project bags coming into the shop for springtime. So we're going to have some really lovely, I've been sold out of project bags just about for a pretty long time. So I've got these in stock now. There are a few more coming as well. Over the next week or so, I'll be getting a whole load of these in. So if you're looking for a project bag, we have got, this little ones are kind of like really great for sock size projects or kind of like little small one hang wonders, I suppose. Something like a Sophie scarf would fit in here. I do have a medium size bags as well. I just don't have one with me at the moment. And then I have a nice big large bag. I love the print on this. How pretty. Also, there is really lovely coordinating orangey polka dot fabric on the inside. This bag is just super cheery, so it's really it's making me feel like springtime for sure. I've also added to the larger bags little handles now. These are removable. When I was making them before, they just kind of had little tabs on the side. I wasn't sure if they needed handles or not, but I think this is a nice compromise, because then if you want to take the handle off, you can. If you want to use it, it's there. If you want to take it off and use it for something else, you can absolutely do that too. So this is the larger bag. These ones are approximately 33 wide by about 30 centimeters tall, and they fit a whole heap of yarn. You can easily get a sweater quantity in here. You might even be able to squish a blanket quantity in. It's huge. It's really roomy. And then finally, definitely last but not least, we've got the Bahramu Woodnote DK in. So I am super, super excited about this. And I will, in a moment, show you a work in progress I've got going on. But for now, I will show you all the glorious colors that this comes in. So these are probably my 3 favorite. This is actually what I chose to do my whip in, so I don't know why my arm is in my face. Also, with this new camera setup, I really hope that these are focusing. If I put these in a little bit close to the camera, are they focusing? Hopefully. My monitor and camera situation is a little bit, it's not the best. It's a little bit of a delay, so I can't really see what's going on with the focusing. Let me see, a few more colors here. So I've brought in 9 colors of these to start with. I probably will be bringing in a couple more, but they are absolutely gorgeous. Let me see if I can get the last one in there. Okay. Right, there we go. So that is, sorry, I should have said the first 3 that I showed there, that is called Hare and Willow, which is the bluey green one. And I believe the yellow one is called Honeybee. This one is Rosehip. It's a really lovely deep pink. This one is called Conquer. It's a lovely rich nutmeggy brown. This one is called Toad. Really gorgeous, earthy olive green. I'm sorry, I don't think that that's focusing, is it? There we go. The purple one is called Blackcurrant. Focus. And finally, there is a really lovely rich navy. That one is called Creek. That's what it's called. Okay, so 9 absolutely stunning colors in this. Let me tell you a little bit about Woodnote. So Woodnote is, first of all, it's manufactured by Bahramu, which is a British company. So this is British yarn. It is 34% blue face Leicester, 33% Massam, and 33% merino. Really, really lovely blend. The blue face Leicester is giving it an absolutely gorgeous, just super subtle luster, and the Massam fleece tends to be a little bit kind of gray and heathered, and you can definitely see that. I'm not sure actually if I just put this up a little bit closer to the camera again, if you can kind of see that very, very subtle kind of heathered effect. And the Massam makes it very hard wearing. And of course, it's lovely and squishy, and it's really soft. It's got a little bit of fuzz on it. It's very slight halo, but certainly not like irritating whatsoever. I'm quite happy to have this up around my neck, insides of my wrist, absolutely no bother. It's quite bouncy as well. There would tend to be quite a bit of crimp in a PFL fleece. I'm not sure about the Massam fleece actually, if it has a crimp or not as well, but it makes for a very, very bouncy yarn. It's very springy. And I will show you. I normally start with what I'm wearing, but maybe I will, in the interest of tangents, I'll just show you what I've cast on with this. Kind of as my little sample here. Okay, so this is the beginnings of the Creel Cowl by Isolde. Just drop my ball on the floor there. But so I'll pop up a little photo of sorry, this is going mad out of focus. I will pop out a little photo of Isolde's sample here. I spent ages kind of stressing, to be honest, about what I was going to knit with this yarn, because I was so excited to get something cast on with it and to get a sample going for the shop, but I just wasn't quite sure what I was looking for, whether that was, I usually make something small like a hat or a little cowl or something like that for shop samples, so I can get them out quickly and so that I don't have to use up so much yarn to get a sample. But this one 100%, just when I saw it, I knew that this was going to be perfect for it. And Isolde actually had a sample in pretty similar colors. Her blue was a bit more blue. This one's actually, it's green, really. But anyway, let me tell you about the pattern. So this is a brioche kind of sampler mixed with garter. And it is a rather interesting shape as well, but I'll tell you about that in a second. So just in terms of how the yarn has been kind of working in this pattern, because that's really what I want to talk about. So so the pattern starts off with a little bit of rib at the bottom and then moves into this really, really lovely herringbone brioche. And I will be honest with you, this section of brioche, the pattern is written perfectly. She also has a chart. Normally at these sorts of things, I prefer to work from charts because I just find that jumble of letters on a page in a written instructions to be a little bit overwhelming to look at. However, the chart also has a lot going on, and it took a little bit to get my head around, and I eventually ended up printing it off and running a highlighter through the rounds or the rows rather, that I was really struggling with, just so that I could kind of single them out and look at those rows in particular. So I actually had to rip this back twice. And well, first of all, I'll tell you, so the experience that I've had with frogging the yarn, no trouble at all. Even though I had to rip this out twice, and even though it's a little bit, like I said, it has that halo, it's a little bit fuzzy, I was kind of expecting it to completely stick to itself. Like it does have a little bit of a sticky quality, but when I ripped it out, that sticky quality sometimes with yarns causes them to sort of velcro together. They start felting together, and then when you pull them apart, it kind of destroys the fiber. It gets pilly and those sorts of things. And I am so surprised by this. It did not pill at all. Like it didn't even, like obviously your yarn kind of gets like crimpy, like ramen noodles when you rip it back after it's been knit for even a short period of time. And then some people want to kind of soak their yarn before they rework it. I never do that. Sometimes you can still see the crimp in the yarn when you reknit it, but not here. Even with a complex pattern like this, that didn't affect it at all. So I'm really, really pleasantly surprised with the robustness of this yarn. Like, I mean, I think ripping it back that much is not something that you can really ask too much of it. But this is, yeah, just really, really impressed with the quality of that. And it hasn't affected the yarn at all. Now, in terms of my knitting experience with this pattern, so I've ripped it out twice, carried on to, there's a garter section, and then this other brioche, I believe she calls it the pearl brioche stitch, which was a new one to me. I've never tried this one before. Actually, I'll just maybe put that up a little bit closer. You might be able to see the texture. It kind of reminds me of seed stitch in a way, which is also one of my favorite textures. So I did really enjoy knitting that section. However, I have noticed, after I thought for the third time that I had knitted the herringbone section correctly, there does just seem, now, to be honest, I'm looking at it on the camera like this, and it's a lot less obvious. But I think that I've made a mistake. Maybe you guys can see it, maybe you can't, but I'm going to point it out now. So right around here on like the third or fourth kind of leg of the herringbone, it just seems a bit off. Like there's a little bit of a juke or jive in what should be a more or less, I mean, it's not going to be perfectly straight because these columns are kind of made by overlapping decreases, but they just don't seem to quite line up, which is a little bit peculiar because in that case, I would have thought that that should have thrown in the entire pattern moving forward, like up the ways, that should have thrown everything off. And I never had a problem with the stitch count either way. Like I never got to a point in any row and went, oh, I've run out of stitches, I've missed something somewhere. Yeah, so I don't know why my mistake at the bottom hasn't had a knock-on effect with all the rows above it. And I have gone back and double-checked the pattern. Like 5 times I've reread this and kind of read what I can of my knitting. And like I'm quite certain I've done this to the pattern, but there is just like this little jog here that doesn't look quite right. I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to bother going back to fixing it. I think what I'm going to do is carry on knitting the rest of the cowl, and I'm going to block it and see if I can't kind of convince those stitches to sort of line up. So basically, I don't want to give away too much of the pattern, but kind of how the herringbone works and where the decreases come up, you kind of have a line of stitches coming up from one side like this that get decreased kind of right leaning, and then you have kind of the next decrease comes up and overlaps it into a left leaning decrease, and they alternate, which should give the illusion of a straight line of double centered decreases, more or less. Like they should kind of all balance out so that it looks like more or less a straight line. Now mine's a wee bit wavy. But yeah, I don't know if that is actually genuinely a mistake or if it might just be kind of that my knitting isn't, because it's not blocked, that it's not quite sitting where it should do. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on, knit the rest of the cowl, block it. If it transpires that the blocking doesn't help, then I think I will do some surgery on this guy, and I think I will just cut him off at the garter stripe up here, rip back the brioche, reknit the brioche, and then Kitchener it back together, because the thought of, like, right now, since I've already knit this 3 times, the thought of going back and doing it again right now is really daunting and unpleasant. And that is not the fault of the pattern whatsoever. It is absolutely just, I didn't struggle to follow the pattern. I think that I just maybe wasn't in the right headspace for such complicated brioche. And it's kind of one of those patterns, like, looking at it, you would think, oh yeah, I'll just place a stitch marker like every, 20 stitches or whatever, that it looks like this is repeated, but it actually doesn't really work like that. So yeah, I started with stitch markers and then abandoned them because they were actually just getting in the way and being more of a hindrance than anything. One more thing I want to say about this. So this was giving me a little bit of palpitations as well, because I couldn't quite figure out how the shaping worked. So the cowl kind of is like a bandana shape. It's like a really long, deep bandana sort of shape. It's knit flat and it's seamed at the back. And the schematic sort of shows it, and because it's knit on the bias, so the schematic shows it as like essentially, triangular with a bit of a I don't know, straight edges at the top where it's seamed together. I'm going to throw up a picture of the schematic here so you guys can understand what I'm talking about. Hopefully that doesn't give too much of the pattern away. But I was kind of struggling with, I thought, for some reason I just had in my head that the cast on edge was kind of one side of it and it was going to kind of go this way and that it should keep getting bigger, kind of come out, you know, the same way that like a triangular shawl would keep getting bigger. So I couldn't quite figure out why it kept asking me to increase and then decrease in the same spot. I'm like, that's not getting any bigger. But it is definitely a trust the process kind of thing, because now I have figured out that what I thought was kind of the one of the edges that I thought was kind of along this long edge is actually this shorter one here. So you kind of end up with this little bump out almost. So it kind of starts going this way and then angles off in that direction. Yeah, so the shaping was a little bit unusual, but I'm just trusting the process. But as I say, apart from getting a bit bamboozled by the really complicated rib at the beginning, absolutely really enjoying this knit. And because it is extra squishy, crimpy yarn, and it's an extra squishy brioche texture, this is going to be so luscious, you guys. Oh my god, I can already just wish you could feel this. I really wish you could feel this. It's incredible. It's going to be really nice and warm, and I don't think it's going to be super heavy. I like the idea that it's going to be quite generous, actually. Like, it's quite large. It's definitely going to kind of like wrap my whole torso pretty much. But I love that I can just throw it over my head, throw it on, and kind of carry on, and also not worry about like shawl tails coming undone and falling off the backs of your shoulders, that sort of thing. So yeah, really looking forward to getting some more work done on this, and getting it off the needles and blocked and seeing what we can do about that brioche section. I'm looking at the camera now, and it doesn't look quite so obvious as it had to me when I was knitting on it a few nights ago. So fingers crossed we won't have to do any surgery on this one. Also, speaking of surgeries, so last time I had said that I was going to start doing a bit of a segment on fixes, knitting fixes, that I have a whole ton of projects that are finished but need a bit of a tweak. There's things that I don't reach for because they're just not quite right, things that I keep meaning to go back and fix. Some of them are more involved fixes than others. Anyway, long story short, I am just here to tell you that I didn't get around to one this month, but I do have one in mind that I think is coming up next. Like, hopefully the weather will start warming up soon, and I can start wearing kind of more of my spring knits. And I have a jumper. Don't have it with me. I did bring it with me. Where have I put it? That's the next question now. All right, sorry guys, like camera malfunction there. But anyway, I do have the jumper here today. So this is Rizzo by Poison Girls. I knit this back in 2020. Just at the start of the pandemic, when we were having that incredibly beautiful spring. Oh my gosh, I can remember sitting in my front garden knitting this in the sunshine. It's not something we get an opportunity for an awful lot here in Northern Ireland, so it's taking full advantage. So this top, it's just like a little vintage shaped sort of blouse. It's really quite flattering on me. The only thing is, kind of the downside and why I don't wear it so often, is this was kind of back when I had discovered the tubular or Italian bind off and became a bit obsessed. So every time I had ribbing to bind off, that's what I was using. And unfortunately, I just haven't mastered the tension on it yet. So the sleeves are rather tight. And in fact, so is the hem. The hem less so, but it is still just a little bit tight. It doesn't have quite as much give in it as I would like. But it does make the arms like rather uncomfortable. I'm quite big in the upper arm compared to the rest of my body, so I actually usually have to modify the sleeves anyway to make them just a little bit bigger. And this one doesn't have a sleeve per se so much as you're just kind of picking up stitches to do the little ribbed sort of cap on it. I guess they're sort of like cap sleeves, so it's just got like a little ribbed cuff there. But anyway, the bind off is way too tight, so I just want to undo the bind offs on the two sleeves and the hem. It's a little tight on the neckline as well, actually. And this neckline is actually, it's picked up and knitted after, I believe. Is it? Yeah, pretty sure it is. So I could be tempted to maybe unpick the neckline as well and redo it. But we'll see how that goes. Now, the reason that I hadn't gotten around to this, I mean, apart from being mad busy the last little while, repairs I can't find the yarn for it. So I know that I have, this is, by the way, this is West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite 4-ply. Absolutely love the color. If you guys hadn't been able to tell yet, like, yellow is kind of my go-to. I absolutely adore anything that's yellow. Not sure if it's really my color, but I don't really worry too much about those sorts of things. Yeah, so I just would like to undo the cuffs and whatnot, but I can't find, I know I have at least a half skein. Like, they were 100-gram skeins. I've got at least 50 grams of this yarn in my stash somewhere. I definitely held on to it, and I'm quite sure that I haven't knitted it into anything else. So Lord knows where it is. And like, I can picture this ball in my head. And it should definitely be where most of my yarn stash is. I can kind of picture it amongst all the other balls, but is it there? It's not there. So anyway, we'll look for it in earnest over the weekend here, and hopefully it'll turn up and I'll be able to get it done. It's actually a problem that's going on with the jumper that I'm wearing as well. So I'll just tell you about that now. It's usually what I start with. This podcast is a little bit all over the place, so bear with me. So this is the oh gosh, I've just had a complete brain fart. It's the No Frills Sweater by Petite. Okay, I knit this one again around the same time. Actually, this one's a little bit earlier. I think I knit this one 2019. This is knit in Giddy Aunt Yarns, who's now Inspiring Yarns. This is their 4-ply singles. Now, and the colorway is Grimhilda, by the way. This is probably one of my favorite colorways that they do. It's, of course, not showing up quite so well on this camera. Actually, maybe if I just get a little bit closer, you guys might be able to kind of see the, it's just got, it's like a really deep purple. It's got all these kind of little subtle, deeper like violet purples, but also kind of like little bits of magenta. It's just such a lovely mix. Now, this pattern, if I recall correctly, is actually written for DK weight yarn. I have used 4-ply singles in it, and that singles has kind of, for lack of a better term, just bloomed really beautifully over time. It's filled in. It's got, it's the overall texture of the jumper does have a little bit of a halo, but I wouldn't say that it's pilly. A lot of people tell you shouldn't knit sweaters or bags or socks or anything. It means like anything that would get a lot of kind of wear, particularly like abrasive rubbing, because the yarn will pill and it just will look very shabby very quickly. But I actually haven't found that with this single ply yarn at all. I mean, like, maybe it's because it kind of does have that overall effect it's less noticeably kind of this one spot is pilling. I don't know, but you know what? It works. So if you've been thinking about knitting a single ply sweater and you weren't sure about it, if that's been holding you back, just do it. Go for it. You can absolutely knit a jumper in single ply yarn. It's not going to kill the yarn. It's just going to give you a different effect than you might be used to with other super smooth yarns. And honestly, I probably wear this jumper the most, like I would say it's probably one that I reach for the most, despite it also having really tightly bound off. The cuffs on this one are quite tight, and the hem is loose enough that it's easy enough to get, it fits around my body, so it's not like clinging to me or anything. But it just kind of, when you lift it up to put it over your head, you can kind of feel that resistance against the bind off. So I think I would like to redo the ones on this jumper as well. Now the only trouble is I'm pretty sure that I used the leftovers from this yarn. I definitely knit a couple of hats for my partner's nieces, but I think there might still be the teeny tiniest ball left over. It's probably enough to at least redo the cuffs. So I'm gonna go back to my stash and just see if that is in fact still there. If it's not, I do have another one of their yarns, just one of their sock yarns, which is in blackcurrant jam. It's also really deep purple, and if it's strictly just for the bind off on the cuffs, I think it'll blend in well enough that you could probably get away with it. So yeah, so hems and cuffs, redoing the bind offs, that's on my radar for repair work coming up this month. Right, let's talk about the other whip that I had going on was my iris pullover. And if you follow me on Instagram, then you may have seen that I recently, so I cut the steeks for the armholes, and I picked up a sleeve and started knitting on the sleeve. This is coming along pretty beautifully. I'm pretty happy with it so far. Let me just hold it up. So this has got, I kind of just continued knitting the body. I've got like 2 more kind of full repeats of this flower motif to do on the body. And I think there are only 3 repeats on the sleeve because it is a drop shoulder. Like it already kind of starts down here. I actually haven't tried this on yet for fitting. I thought that I might do that now. I've just put the body stitches on a barber cord. Honestly, absolute lifesaver, the person that came up with barber cords. Genius. Jojo, she came up. The knitting barber, she came up with barber cords. That's why they are called barber cords. Right, so I think I might just pop this over. I think this should fit over my jumper. Apologies for likely mic rustling going on here, but let's just pop this over. Actually, you know what? Because it is kind of just Velcro rubbing on that, maybe I'll just pop the jumper off. Bear with me 2 seconds while I try to sort this out, you guys. I'm just gonna put the mic down. It's probably gonna do weird wonderful things to my hair as well, but sure. Let's see. Oh, not too bad. Yeah. So yeah, so the drop shoulder, let me see, so it's already coming down about there. Just making this repeat on the sleeve actually line up really well with this one. Yeah, it's so this, like, if you've seen the pattern, like, it is quite an oversized pullover. It's meant to be quite baggy. Now, I didn't want it that baggy because those sorts of things, so I knit the first size because it was kind of in between sizes. Size 2 would have been, just because of the way the color work motif on this works, this sizing, there's quite a bit of difference in sizes as you kind of go up each size, and the second size just would have been huge on me. So I opted to do the smaller size and just have less ease. So it probably looks a little bit different than hers, but there is still, like, there's loads of room in here. Like, you can see this isn't sitting right up against my back either. So once Yeah, I've still got about, yes, I'd say this is probably about 8 inches of ease, which is, I think, what it should have worked out to based on my swatch and all that sort of thing. Anyway, but this neckline is exactly where I want it to be. I'm really thrilled with that. That is sitting perfectly. Sleeves are good and wide enough as well. I did actually end up going up a size for the sleeves. So yeah, I do have kind of rather bulky upper arms. But so when I knit sweaters, I typically tend to try to pick up a few extra stitches when I add the sleeves, just to give myself a little bit more room so they're not so tight there. So I knit the body a little bit longer before I separated for sleeves, which meant that and she does detail in the pattern kind of how you can go about this as well. So I ended up picking up the number of sleeves for the second size, which seems to be working out quite well because this is not, there's still like extra room under here too. Lots of room, and I am actually expecting that this is going to block out slightly larger as well than a host usually does. So I'm quite chuffed with this, you guys. I think this is looking pretty good. And I'm still really enjoying knitting on it. It has been put a little bit on the back burner since I started the Creel Cowl with the Balramu, but yeah, still really enjoying this. And I would really love to wear this coming into spring as well. So I'd best get my skates on and get it finished and get it blocked so that when there is a springtimey window and it actually feels like spring in this country, I'll be really happy wearing it. All right. Okay. Just realized I forgot to clip my mic back on after that, so hopefully you guys still heard all that. Technology. I'll have it figured out one day, and this will come across as a little bit more of a professional jobby, but today is not that day. I have one more finished object to show you. In fact, it's the only finished thing I have to show you. And that is this sock. So this is the Shell Cottage sock. I've only finished one, so if you watched last time, I was talking about I had received a sample skein of Erica Knight's Moorland Mohair, which is their no nylon sock yarn. They have a mohair in place of the nylon, so it is a 80% blue face luster, 20% mohair, I believe. And the idea is that the mohair should give it enough strength that your socks will kind of stand up. So yeah, my goal last time was to just knit a pair of socks and kind of test them out, wear them for a while, see how they wore. I'm kind of expecting that these will felt together with somewhere, and I think particularly in the sole, which is I think really where the strength is going to come from. So I've actually just got these off the needles. One of the needles, I haven't even cast on the second one yet, so we're not quite moving as fast along with this as I would like. Certainly not got to the actual testing of software yet, but we will get there. Pattern though, so the Shell Cottage socks are by Helen Stewart. I normally knit vanilla socks, but the colorway on this is kind of like a really lovely old pink. It's actually almost kind of a little bit purpley too. Mauve, I suppose you would call this color. I just felt like it needed something a little bit more feminine, so I went looking for something that it kind of had a bit of a texture to it and came across this pattern. It's a free pattern on Ravelry actually, and she gives you a couple different options for the heel. I opted to do the heel flap and gusset on this one just because I thought this would be a little bit stronger. She also gives you instructions for a short row heel, but I just thought I think this is actually technically, this is an Eye of Partridge heel on the back here. If I don't know that that'll focus if I put it any closer, but so that should give some reinforcement to the back of the heel. So that's why I went with that one, just trying to give this yarn. I mean, I don't doubt that it's as strong as a nylon sock yarn. I don't really. I think this is going to hold up absolutely fine. Still a little bit hesitant on the price point though. Also, I should have mentioned last time as well when I was talking about this, about no nylon socks. There are other no nylon sock options already in the shop. So I have, for example, one second, it's just about in my reach. For example, there's this beauty. So I carry the Vivacious 4-ply range by Fiber Spates. And this is a high twist merino, 100% merino. There's no nylon in this at all. And it's also suitable for socks. I knit my partner a pair of socks in this. I think that was the first pair of socks that I ever knit him. And they're still going. He's worn those socks around for 3 or 4 years now. Like he's had them a good long while. I did have to darn one small hole in one of the heels, but in the yarn's defense, my partner has razor blades for heels. I don't know what's going on in the back of his feet. It's a wonder that any of his socks hold up, to be honest. So that's not a fault of the yarn, and it was just a small hole. It was easily darned, and they've been fine ever since. So something like that with no nylon, it's just 100%. Well, it's just really high twist is where the strength in this one comes from. And these are small batch dyed. They're indie. They come in absolutely beautiful colors. So these ones retail for about £18, whereas the Ericanite retails for about £28. Now, most of the difference in that is probably, well, it's in the materials. I mean, like a blue face luster and mohair is definitely more expensive fiber than merino is. So that's where the extra cost is coming. Now, I have to say I did really enjoy knitting with this. It feels lovely. It doesn't feel, I'm kind of a little bit weird with mohair because sometimes I find that mohair can actually really irritate my skin, but this doesn't seem to. I think that it didn't bother my hands at all while I was knitting with it. Sounds kind of weird to say that I've been rubbing this hank all over my body, but as you do, you put the ball up to your more sensitive bits of skin, like under your neck or the inside of your elbows is a good test as well, and it's absolutely fine. So yeah, well, stay tuned. Hopefully I'll be able to get another one of these socks off the needles pretty quickly. I've been knitting these on my commute into Belfast every morning, either on a train or the bus. So they've just been going as fast as I can knit on the commute. The pattern itself, really enjoyed this as well. It's easy to follow. It looks really complicated, this texture. Let me just put that up a bit closer again. Let's focus. We go. Yeah, it's not complicated at all though. It's a 4-row repeat, and it's not actually, it's just kind of done with like a little lifted stitch over and some yarn overs. I haven't properly blocked this one out, so I think that the texture might open up just a little bit. There's sort of like a little bit of an eyelet kind of thing that goes on in here. But yeah, really enjoyable pattern, and it does work on a rib structure, which makes it a bit more stretchy. So sizing is a little bit, and she actually does give quite a few sizing options on this as well. I think there are 4 or 5 different widths to choose from, and then she gives you with each of those widths kind of recommendations on about how long they should be. So really well written pattern, really enjoyable. Would definitely recommend the Shell Cottage socks if you haven't tried this out yet. So that's all that I've been knitting on thus far since I last saw you guys. I do have one more thing that's kind of come up as sort of a it's not really a commission, but I'm planning on knitting a gift for a friend's grandchild. Well, a new friend's grandchild. So I'll give you a little bit of backstory to this. This is kind of wild. I don't think I've ever knit anything like this for kind of a stranger, but so context. So I go down to a local pub every other Friday in Belfast. I quite often take my knitting down with me. So there's a band that plays from about 5:30 to 7:30 kind of thing. So I go down after work, take my knitting, have a couple of beers, knit away, listen to some great tunes. Band's excellent. And yeah, so I tend to sit, there's a bunch of regulars in that bar. We all kind of sit together, whatever. We've gotten to know each other over the years. And a little while ago, I was introduced to kind of a friend of that group. And this gentleman did something absolutely remarkable for me. Okay, so if you've been coming to the shop for a while, or you've known me for a while, then you would have known that I've been really struggling with acne for the last 6 years. It doesn't look so bad now. Thankfully, I've actually been able to start covering it with a bit of makeup, but up until about 3 months ago, it was horrendous, you guys. Like, I've never experienced anything like it. I never had skin issues as a kid or a teenager. It just kind of came out of the blue. I still don't know why. I've seen a GP about it. I've tried every drugstore brand and fancy pants send away for a medicated brand of lotions and potions to cleanse my face and keep it moisturized and that sort of thing. And trying to eat a bit healthier and that sort of thing, and make sure that my diet is kind of helping my skin. But anyway, so when he met me back at the pub, so this is shortly before Christmas, a couple weeks before Christmas, I met this fella. And he very boldly shouted across the table to me. He actually ended up having to come around. We all kind of sit around this little like four-seater table, but there's usually about like 8 of us around it. And of course, it was absolutely super loud in there. So he was kind of shouting at me across the table, but he was trying to explain that he had previously had a similar condition with his skin, and he was trying to recommend a product to me to fix it. And of course, I very skeptically went, "Oh yeah, sure. Well, I've tried everything." And what he recommended was sea moss. Okay, now at the time we were in the pub, he was shouting at me, and I couldn't hear him over the music. Between his accent and the noise, and yeah, I was just like, sea moss, what is that? And like, I was actually thinking more along the lines of it's another cleanser, it's another lotion, or serum or whatever. But it is actually, it's supplement. So he very kindly went out of his way to go buy said supplement for me, and brought it to our mutual friend at the pub, who then brought it to me. And he wouldn't take money off me for it. It's rather expensive stuff. But you guys, it has made such a difference in my face. And I bumped into him in the pub again a few weeks ago. And I've since gone and bought more of this stuff. Like, it's absolutely unreal. If you're struggling with any kind of skin condition, I seriously would recommend it. The inflammation is down. I'm not breaking out nearly as much anymore. So I think finally something is starting to heal it. So anyway, long story short, because he wouldn't let me pay him back, monetarily anyway, he asked if I would knit something for his new grandchild. So he's due a new grandchild in April, which is coming up really quickly. And yeah, I said, of course I would knit something for him. I'd be delighted. So he would very much like a baby blanket. And I'm not usually a massive fan of knitting blankets. I think they just take forever for me, and yeah, they're not a favorite project, so I'm a little bit at a loss of I don't really kind of have a go-to blanket pattern. So I've been having a cursory look at kind of little blanket patterns. I don't have a lot of time to knit this one, so I think it's probably going to have to be an Aran or a chunky weight blanket if I've got like maybe 6 weeks to knit this thing. I'm going to run into him in the pub again after Easter. I've kind of given myself like an Easter deadline because I know that he's off the drink for Lent, so I'll not see him in the pub again until after Easter. So I was just wondering if you guys have like a go-to super quick knit baby blanket pattern. I would love it. The only kind of caveat, please do not send me one that is all over garter, because A, it will take me forever, and B, it's just going to use a lot more yarn that I would kind of like to use. I've got, but I actually didn't bring with me, mostly because I'm not 100% sold on that's what I'm going to use, but I do have some Aran weight yarn in my stash that I think is probably enough for a baby blanket. I think I've got about 800 or 900 meters thereabout, which I'm hoping is enough to make, kind of like not it's a baby blanket, so it doesn't need to be huge. Yeah, but yeah, maybe around kind of like 36 by 48 inches is probably what I'm aiming for. I don't want it to be like a super tiny one, but I want the kid to be able to grow with it a little bit, but it doesn't need to be massive. Anyway, the only kind of real request that he had was, could I add the baby's name to it? Of course I can. I haven't yet decided if that is something that I should do with like color work or Swiss darn it afterward, or if it's something that I should put into kind of like the stitch texture. So open to some ideas, but looking for just kind of, yeah, a quick and easy but engaging blanket pattern. Like the idea of just knitting back and forth garter for 6 weeks is horrifying to me. That sounds really boring. So let's not do that. Last thing that I wanted to mention is that I have signed up for the Knit Every Day in March challenge for Alzheimer's UK research. So the Alzheimer's UK research obviously does research looking for a cure for Alzheimer's, and I've had a few family members affected by that. If you had to, then you know that it affects everybody in the family. It really is an absolutely awful disease. So yeah, it's just a cause that's near and dear to my heart, and I would love to ask, I don't normally do this sort of thing, but I would love to ask if you can spare a few quid, please do consider donating. I've got a link to my personal fundraiser in the description below, but you can also just find the cause on Facebook or Just Giving as well. I don't think that it's too late to sign up for that challenge either. If you're interested, do consider it. I mean, it's not like a really kind of strict thing. You can just kind of log your days, what sort of time you started knitting at, and it's just a really great community of other people that are kind of sharing their stories about who they're doing it or why they're doing it, and also sharing all their lovely knits along the way. So there's Facebook groups, but there's also, if Facebook's not your jam, there's the Just Giving page, and there's a third one, you guys, but like all the donations kind of link up into the same place eventually, so you can use any of these sources to actually put your donation forward if you'd like, or when you sign up, then you can share those different methods as well. So I will put the link down below to my challenge page, but you should be able to get kind of all the information from it there as well if you'd also like to sign up. So please do consider that. Otherwise, I think that's everything that I wanted to chat to you guys about. If you're still with me here, thank you so much for listening to me ramble on about all of these things. I hope you've enjoyed your time here with me today, and I hope that I have given you some inspiration, or at least some kind of food for thought. So thanks so much for joining me, and please do hit the like and subscribe button if you have enjoyed. That way you'll get a notification when the next episode comes out, and it also helps me get in front of other eyeballs so I can keep podcasting. All right, thanks so much. Take care until next time. Bye.